Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Hack. And I had a couple of questions come in. One from a viewer who posted on a previous video, and I really like that. If you guys want to ask questions and you want to reach out, please do it. I mean, I think it's great. Questions are healthy. And I'm going to put the question that he asked up on the screen here for a minute, just so you guys can read it. But I think that this question is embedded heavily in sports psychology. And I'm not necessarily a sports psychologist. Now, being a coach, I have to know a little bit about it. But it is definitely not my specialty. The one place I know to get this information in a robust way, I don't know how else to say it, to get the complete picture. And there was a book that was written back in the 1970s called The Inner Game of Tennis. And it was a book that took a deep look on the inside, in the inner voice that all players have of whatever sport. Now, the fact that it was tennis doesn't matter so much. It's very, very universal, these ideas. And the idea is that inside of you have a couple of voices, and one of them is this very critical, self-deprecating voice. That's a big word. It just means it hurts you. You make a mistake and it's like, you dummy, why did you do that again? You hung a piece for the second, third, fourth time today. Why are you doing that? Stop it, And that voice that you're hearing, that one that goes on inside of you, it's not a healthy thing. It's there, and it's, I don't know, maybe somewhat helpful. I don't know, but when you're trying to perform at your peak performance, you have to quiet that voice, and that's the premise of one of the chapters in that book, The Inner Game of Tennis, is how to control and understand what's going on there. And he talks about the other voice too, which is the one that's giving you advice, very helpful voice, right? Telling you how to, in tennis terms, telling you how to stand and how to swing through the ball and all those things. But that voice also, when you're trying to perform at your peak, is unhelpful. Because it's not a performance voice. That's a voice that helps you train, right? It's your training voice. And when you're performing, you have to let go of both. You have to quiet them all and just do. And it's a fantastic book. I really do suggest finding a copy of it online. Look it up, get a PDF, buy it. I don't care. But that is definitely where that question will get answered at the deepest level. Okay, thank you for your question. Now, the second question that came in, I'm not sure if I'm getting trolled here. I kind of hope I am, but the question was, how do I play the Englund Gambit? Oh. And I think this question is worthy, and we're going to look into it. But the second part of that question happened to be, he seemed to think that the opening was bad from move one. And he said computers and Lee Chess says it's an inaccuracy and all these things. We're going to figure out why that is. Okay, I think it's good to understand it anyway. So here's the Englund Gambit. Here's how it starts. Okay. And you can see over here, A40. That's the old notation on how to look it up. Englund Gambit. Great. So let's look at the database for a second. Let's understand more about the database that we don't know yet. Or that at least I've never shared with you guys on video before. And the first thing I want you to notice is not how much white wins, right? We know if we read this across, we'd see the move, we'd see how many games out of all the games there were that happened that way. This is the number of games, the actual number, that's 61%. And then white wins this much, black wins this much, draws here in the middle. This is the most important number of all of them. And the reason why it's the most important number is that number gives you a feeling. The feeling of how complicated this opening is for masters to understand. If it's super complicated, that number will be smaller because they're going to make a lot more mistakes and the game's going to end decisively more often. If the game is sharp, meaning there's a lot of tactics and things and pitfalls and things you can do wrong, that number will be smaller. If there are very few pitfalls, very few things to understand, that number will be bigger, right? If it's very understandable, very comprehensible, one guy's not going to do something weird that you've never seen before. Well, that's what that is. Now, I'm going to go over to the Lichess database, and you guys are going to laugh with me, right? I hope so, because this is very funny. Why can't amateurs make draws? We can't. And the reason is because we don't understand the game deep enough to walk through an opening and a middle game and then an end game without making significant mistakes. And that means that as soon as one side picks up on the mistake, they're going to win the game. So it's not the guy who makes a mistake first, it's the guy who makes a mistake last that loses the amateur game. Okay? So this number on Masters is very important because it tells us how complicated things are going to be. This number on the amateurs, all we're going to do is we're going to look at white versus black. Okay? So when I look at the Masters and I play the Englund Gambit, watch what happens. What this is telling me, and I'm going to put it into words one time, is that this opening does not produce a draw very often. And those games where black was winning a lot, all of those games went that way, right? White was winning those games, not black. Black's win percentage actually got smaller than average on the opening. And so the game is more difficult to play for black than it is to play for white in the Masters level. Now, go to Lichess level. Amateurs. Well, when you start the game, white has a pretty significant advantage because he goes first, right? And you can see that this number is very even in some of these openings, and this number is very heavily weighted, one way or the other in different openings. So when we play this one, we already improved over d4, d5 because black was only winning 44% of the time. Now he's winning 47% of the time. And the reason that is because amateurs don't understand the position well enough to play it. Well, what is there to understand then? So when you gambit a pawn in chess, you're supposed to try to get a couple of things for it. You could try to get a couple of things for it. One of those things is time. The time value, and if you haven't seen my time material quality series, you might need to go back to that. But one of the things is time, and every time you bring a big piece into the game, it moves the game towards the inevitable conclusion of the game. And if you can move your big pieces into the game faster than the other guy, you get ahead in time. Okay? And if you can maneuver your pieces around the board faster than the other guy, you get ahead in time in the middle game. So did we give up this pawn for time? Well, we can move one piece into the game on the next turn. White can move one piece into the game on the next turn. We can move a piece into the game. He can move a piece into the game. We can move a piece into the game. Right? There is no way we got any time out of that at all. Black is not getting ahead in time on this gambit. So maybe he did it for another reason, right? Maybe he did it for some kind of a space reason. Does he have more space than white to move around? No, he doesn't. And so you start to wonder, what was the Englund Gambit really doing? And in amateur chess, since we don't understand that, it makes it very difficult. But if I go one more move into this game, like that, and we say that, as an amateur, I don't know if they would guard the pawn or not. But the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I want to illustrate it, right? So first of all, we look at the par kind of best move, 48% to 49%. This one was maybe better for white if we play queen e7, maybe worse for white if we play d6. Right? Why in the world is that happening? Well, now look at that same time value thing. What is this? We have two pieces in the game, and white has none. And it's white's turn. So we did, in fact, now gain something for the gambit that we didn't before. We're now ahead in time, and that is starting to show in the results. It's not showing in the result here at e4. It's showing in the result when they do anything else, right? So if white really knows what they're doing, they're going to play a move like this, and all of a sudden their pieces come out very easily now, and he's not behind in time at all, not in a meaningful way. Because black can't develop this knight here, he'll have problems. And so we see that there is a way for white to play that is just crushing black's spirit. In anything he wanted to get out of this gambit, he doesn't get. But all the other moves, he does get what he wants out of it. Right? And I think when I think about a gambit like the Englund Gambit, the reason why it has a question mark in front of it when you play it is because if white does play very well, if they keep up in time and they keep up in space and they keep up in all those things you can try to do with a gambit, you've just lost a pawn. That's all. And now you're playing down a pawn for the rest of the game, which in amateur chess isn't such a bad thing. You know, in master chess, playing down a pawn would be suicide. You're pretty much done. Because that extra pawn, they'll find a way to use it to their advantage. And it'll make a really hard game for you, or maybe even impossible. So that's why this database looks like this. Very hard, or maybe even impossible, right? And that's why this database looks like this. Because some players knew, and some players didn't know. And that's the best I got on this gambit. You know, it's not something that I tend to play. I find it very difficult. As a matter of fact, if you want to play the Englund Gambit, here's a better version of it. Right? Go into the Queen's Gambit and then play e5. Because this gambit still, you know, it has a different name, sure. But look at this now. These numbers aren't so bad. You've got a 43% win rate for white, which is okay, right? You got a 31%, but black still has chances. Whereas in the other one, he really didn't. And the reason is because this one can be more complicated than the other one was. It can be. It really can. I really hope this helps somebody, especially the folks that asked the questions. Thank you for those questions. And I think we'll end it there. Let me know if you've got more questions, and I will try my best. You guys take care. Bye now.